team. My name once again is Chagulani Sentamu Robert, although I'm more popularly known as Bobi Wine. I am the leader of the People Power Movement and the National Unity Platform political party in Uganda. It's a pleasure to be able to once again represent the plight of my people in Uganda, not just the party that I lead, but the masses of the people. Uganda is a country of 45 million people, 85% of which are young people under the age of 35. Recently, we just went through the most violent election that you can imagine, where more than 150 people were massacred on the 17th and 18th of November. But even before that, massive arrests, abductions, and extrajudicial summary executions were done on the streets. However, even during the elections, the European Union and United States election observers were blocked from the election. Since then, the rampant abductions have been ongoing. The lawlessness has continued, and as we speak right now, thousands of young people are rotting in jails, while tortures and blatant beatings and cruel treatment of the citizens is ongoing. The people of Uganda are only looking to the international community, because while Uganda has never had a peaceful transfer of power since independence, General Museveni having come to power 36 years ago through force of arms, we have constantly discouraged violence because we believe in non-violent actions of transforming our country and changing leadership. Unfortunately, even when the people of Uganda have endeavored to be peaceful and to be moral and to be legal, they have been responded to with brute force killings in the full view of the international community. The reason why I see this as a great opportunity is because we know that dictatorships like General Museveni can only be responsible and called out by the international community. Uganda is a country that largely depends on international aid. And we know that General Museveni can only be called to order when the voice of the international and development partners speak out, because Uganda largely depends on the donations that come from the international community. While we appreciate the partnership of the European countries with Uganda in terms of healthcare and education, we also know that dictatorships in Africa, particularly in Uganda, have been held and kept alive and indeed encouraged by the support of the international community. So it is my prayer and the prayer of my people that the European Union makes the respect for democracy, the respect for human rights, and the respect for the rule of law preconditions for partnerships with Uganda. Otherwise, it is sad to speak, but it continues to make developed democracies like those in Europe look like they're partnering in crime with General Museveni's repressive regime in Uganda. I am hoping that my submission here will appeal to the morality of the European Union and the European Parliament, and I hope that they will find the moral courage to hold General Museveni accountable, because if they hold General Museveni accountable, it will be a very strong precedent that will be set, that even the leaders that will come after General Museveni will know that the international community is not going to fold arms and sit back and watch all this criminality and all these human rights violations go on in Uganda. As I conclude, I will mention the most recent blatant human rights violations that have happened. One of the most famous writers in Uganda, who wrote a book called The Banana Republic, responded to a tweet by the son of the president, who is clearly above the law. He was picked and whipped, and the pictures have been moving on social media with his back cut with a whip with more than 100 times. Unfortunately, the world continues to look on, and international aid continues to flow into Uganda, which international aid is lost in patronage and corruption, while the people of Uganda continue to languish in desperation. It is my humble prayer that once again we are seen and indeed held by the values of morality that bring us together as the international community. We know that the European Union can evoke sanctions against all the human rights abusers. We know that the European Union can evoke the global Magnitsky against General Museveni, which will lay a good and strong moral precedent for the generations now and the generations to come. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your commitment, and I must say that some of the points that you just raised them are concerns for our group as well, for our political group, and we as liberals in the European Parliament have a strong plea for good governance, for rule of law, and earlier today we discussed, by the way, the question of how we can exercise the power of the European Union for the better of the people in our partner countries, on the African continent, but also elsewhere. So, but I would now invite the colleagues to take the floor, to give a statement, to ask questions to you. And we'll start with Nico Stefanuta, who is, as I already said, the co-author of the Parliament resolution, and then I will give the floor to Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Wine. It is an honor to have you here in the European Parliament. In my eyes, you represent the state. You should be a head of state in this moment. You should be somebody representing the Ugandan people, because that was the expression that the Ugandan people expressed. And I want to start by expressing my sorrow for the loved ones you lost, and for the loved ones many Ugandan people have lost, including somebody in my own constituency. I am a Romanian citizen, and I was alerted about this situation from somebody in my own constituency, in my own hometown, who's married to a Romanian citizen, and I listened very carefully, and I understood her sorrow, and I couldn't just stand and watch. I'm also happy to see such young, talented, smart African leaders emerging. And one of the questions I came into this meeting room is, would we as Europeans, should we talk to dictators around the world? And I think that the answer should be really no, and we should really be firm in our actions. We, together with Jan Oetjen and other colleagues, we have made Mr. Borrell aware of what's going on. We have demanded that he recommend sanctions to the member states, and that sanctions are used on the scale that you mentioned, on Magnitsky, on the base of Magnitsky Act, because sanctions are needed. Now, I want to make it clear for those watching, because I bet you have this information at home as well, coming from the governmental side. I want to make clear, if sanctions are drawn, these are not against the Ugandan people, they are against the leaders who torture you, who cut the internet, who kidnap your loved ones, who ban any kind of free expression, and who hold on to power with their life. So if sanctions do come, they are not against the Ugandan people. On the contrary, Europe has been very careful to watch also the pandemic situation, to watch anything that could help the people, but not the politicians in power. And I say that not only as a person who is into foreign politics, but I'm also the budget rapporteur this year for the European Parliament, and I will make sure that the money that does flow from the European Union comes with accountability, and it doesn't go into the wrong hands. Thank you once more for being with us. We are with the Ugandan people in our actions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome now Petras Ostrovicius. Thank you, Petras, for joining, and I give the floor to Barry.
You're very welcome, Mr. Wine. Thank you for your presentation. It's an honour to meet you. I've been following you on social media for the last year or more, and I thank Nico and Jan for creating this opportunity this afternoon. So I understood you made two calls, one in relation to sanctions, and Nico has addressed that very clearly, and the other is in relation to development cooperation. And I remember a case in Uganda where the Prime Minister's office were accused of fraud in relation to 16 million euro, which is donated to the Prime Minister's office, not the President's office, but the Prime Minister's office. I think it was around 2008. However, the fraud was identified by the Office of the Auditor General, and the Office of the Auditor General had been supported by financial aid as well, international development cooperation. And so there is a sort of a balance that seems to me that has to be struck. While sanctions are good because they target the individuals they're meant to target, the problem with restricting development cooperation is that you can have a negative impact on the growth of institutional capacity, whether it's the Auditor General, whether it's the Department of Finance, whether it's the judiciary. So I suppose I'm asking you the question really, how do we strike that balance to make sure that yes, let's do the sanctions, but in relation to development cooperation, how do we avoid damaging the socioeconomic conditions that we're trying to support? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I will once again reiterate my appreciation for the support for the international community, in particular the European Union, and for on a one look, one would realize that indeed it is only the projects and the efforts that are monitored directly by the donors that is the only place, the only situation where international aid makes sense. Otherwise, like you have mentioned many times, the international aid is siphoned and lost in corruption. In Uganda, we have a situation where the president is the state and the state is him. We have total breakdown of institutions that he directs where all the aid goes to. Many times aid that is aimed at helping the people of Uganda is actually turned into oppressing them, lost in, like I mentioned, in patronage and oppression. So while we support the cooperation, while we support the assistance, we would suggest that only the areas where the international community directly focuses and directly supervises the aid, that is only when the aid makes sense to the people of Uganda. Otherwise, the aid that is channeled to help the people of Uganda is many times ending up oppressing the people of Uganda.
Thank you for